Welcome to the Green Building Show, where we investigate green design and building trends throughout Australia.
Hi, I'm Nicole Fasadi, and this week on the Green Building Show, we kick off a new summer DIY series. We'll take a close look at some DIY jobs you can do to dramatically impact the value, comfort, and livability of your home. This week, Carlos Martinez talks to Rohan Calbert, the director of the Men in White Painting Services. He'll explain everything you need to know if you're thinking about painting this summer.
I'm here today with Rohan Calbert. He's the director of Men in White Painting Service. Thanks for being with us, Rohan.
Pleasure.
So we're talking today about painting and
Yes.
DIY painting more
That's
specifically.
Right. That's right.
So I guess what are some of the key things? What can people do themselves when it comes to painting, and when should they be calling in the experts?
Well, I think there's a lot of things that people can do themselves. There's a couple of major issues to bear in mind. The first is working at heights, and I think for a lot of outside work it makes it difficult for do-it-yourself people to work at heights. The second is lead-based paint, because anything prior to 1970 may have had a lead-based undercoat, and it's a trap that people fall into where they start prepping, that is preparing woodwork on an old house without thinking about that, and the lead in the old paint is only harmful if it's ingested as dust, right? So someone who's going to prepare an old window for painting is actually exposing themselves to this lead dust without realizing it, and you can test it. It's only a $25 test. You can buy a test kit at Bunnings. It's just a small little glass vial with 2 chemicals, and you break the seal, you shake it, you mix it, and it has a little liquid with a brush that you can apply to a surface, and if it turns bright red, that means it's got lead, and if it has got lead, then it's probably a good idea to get a professional painter, or look up the EPA guidelines for dealing with lead-based paint.
Right, okay, great.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you for that, Ryan. Okay, let's break it up a little bit into, say, internal painting and external painting.
Yeah.
So when it comes to internal painting, what's the best approach? Should you be going room by room? Should you be doing all the walls at the same time? Should you be doing, I guess, what's the best approach to internal painting?
Well, the best approach is to make a plan, first of all, and try and get economy of scale. So what we do, what most painters would do, is do all the ceilings first. So that involves covering all the furniture or moving the furniture, and then going through the house and doing all the ceilings.
So start with the ceilings.
Start with the ceilings.
And why is that? What's the benefit of that?
The benefit of that is that if there's any overspray from the ceiling, it will land on drop sheets which are covering furniture, or it will land on the wall, and the walls still need to be sanded and painted. Yeah. So I guess the rule of thumb is start from the top and work down. Okay,
and it's not on a room by room basis, but by doing, if you're gonna commit to doing the whole house,
yeah,
then you
want
to surface by surface rather than room by room.
Yeah, well, there's obviously if it's perhaps it's an old sort of terrace, and one of the rooms is full of furniture, and because we sometimes do that. If there's a house that's fully furnished, we'll nominate one room to be a storeroom, and we'll put everything in that, paint the rest of the house, and then take the gear out, and then do that room last.
Yep.
So obviously we can't paint that room or the ceiling, but the beauty of approaching it that way is that the guys get out the ceiling paint once, and they go through and they just apply the same technique, the same prep to the ceilings all the way through, and it's getting a big chunk of the job out of the way, because that's the biggest surface area in the house.
Okay, and so then you just work your way down.
Yeah.
Does that mean you're doing the skirtings next, or the walls next?
Well, actually, the skirtings are down around the base of the wall. So the cornice is where the ceiling meets the wall. So yeah, you'd once you'd started on once you got the ceilings done, then perhaps you'd work on prepping the walls and the woodwork. If I were to summarise, I'd break it up and say the rule of thumb is to do the big areas first and also to do the hard areas first.
Cool.
Yeah, get the hard things out of the way first. Once it comes down to working on walls and woodwork, there's different schools of thought. Like there's not one universal silver bullet. Some people prefer to finish all the woodwork first and then paint the walls. A lot of painters prefer to do it the other way, to do all the walls and then paint the woodwork.
All right, and what about in terms of coats, the number of coats rather? Is it still the same coat that I remember? The coats that I remember from back in the day when I was helping my dad, was that three coats? Yeah, pretty much. Look, in the old days, paint was a little bit different. Nowadays, acrylic paint is mostly self-priming. But you still want to do 3 coats. You want to spot prime any repairs and any patching and any raw substrate. So for example, if there's a whole new gyprock wall, you want to put a full undercoat on. And then 2 finish coats. Okay, so undercoat, 2 finish coats. Yeah, so a 3-coat system is right. Okay, great. And how long is a good paint job expected to last? Well, I think it might last a good 7 to 10 years on the inside, and maybe depending on the circumstances on the outside, you might get 7 to 10 years, but if it's a especially exposed exterior, you might get 5 to 7 years. Woodwork, and I'm talking about decks and varnished timber railings and so forth, it might be a couple of years before you need to recoat. Great. Okay, and what are the difference in paints? I mean, should you always automatically go to the top of the line and the brand names you know, or are there some certain characteristics that you should be looking for, or can you generally just choose any paint that has the colour that you like? I think that you get the best value from buying premium paint. It's all about doing painting as little as you need to. Given that the paint is generally not the most expensive part of the job. What is the most expensive? Labour. Right. Labour, yeah. Paint might be 20% of the cost of the job, which is different to 100 years ago, where it was the opposite, where labour was cheap and materials were very expensive. But now, stuff is cheap and labour is expensive. And so you're better off paying an extra 20 or 10% to get the premium range product. So what does a premium range paint do that a bottom of the line can't? Well, a premium range paint would have high quality resins and binders. A high quality paint would have the pigment ground finer, so that you get better colour, you get better coverage, and I think that's it. Yeah, better quality resins, better quality tints, and I know that there is a government body that measures the performance of paints, and all those results are listed, and it's proven that the best quality paints will retain the colour and the surface integrity much longer than cheap paints. Great. Yeah. And that also means that the paint is going to last longer, so which means less painting. That's it. That's it. Great. Yeah. Yeah. There's benefit in laziness. It's very efficient. Yep. You want to do a paint job once every 10 years. Great. And what about safety? I know you touched on safety before with the lead line paint, the old lead line paint. But when it comes to new painting, is there any safety precaution you need to take inside a house? You have to get the kids out of the room before you start with the roller, or? I think it's always a good idea to have kids out from any work area, pets as well. It's probably good to think of it as a construction site, and when you drive past a construction site, you'll see that
they've got barricades up and people are wearing protective gear.
Okay, and what about green paints? I mean, you hear quite a lot about green paints now,
Yeah.
and it's a bit of controversy surrounding VOC compounds and things like that. Can you set the record straight for us? I guess, what is a green paint and what do people need to know about them?
There's volatile organic compounds in paint, and that's the solvent. And when the paint is curing, it outgasses these volatile organic compounds, and that's what people sense as the smell. And traditionally with alkyd-based paints, commonly called enamels, they had a very high VOC count. It might be 500 milligrams per litre, and consequently were very smelly. Now a lot of acrylics have between, I think, 50 and 100 millilitres per litre, and they hardly smell. And some of the green paints that are called green paints will have, 0 to 10 parts per litre.
People talk about green paints with low VOCs as a health factor.
Yeah,
They use
yeah.
it and actually use it as a sale point.
Yes.
So is it just a smell thing, or is there actually a health benefit to having a paint with low VOC?
Well, the volatile organic compounds, or VOCs, are what affect people with asthma or sensitivity to petrochemical substances, and so it is a health benefit if you step outside that petroleum-based paint system. So there's, for example, natural plant-based resins or oils, clay-based paints for walls. There's mineral silicate products for painting exterior render surfaces. And that's what we used to do until 50 years ago when oil came online and we improved acrylic technology. Interior ceilings and walls were painted with calcimine, which is an egg protein, for example. So it's the green paints are just technically or chemically they're stepping outside that petrochemical paradigm, and then it gets mixed up with the ideological movement.
Okay, well, so to summarise, a green paint, as you put it, it's not a gimmick. It actually is a viable product, and it does have health benefits. Is that
Absolutely.
right? So would you recommend that all families and all people doing DIY should use a green paint, or is it only if they've got some asthma or lung problems or something?
There's 3 reasons why people would choose a natural paint: health, aesthetics, and ideology. There might be more. And health would be not controversial. It's just that there's less VOCs.
Yep.
So that would be a good reason for people to choose a green paint. Aesthetics, some of those natural paints can look quite beautiful, especially like a clay-based paint that has a patina. And the third is ideological. We get a lot of clients that specify a green paint because they feel they're doing the right thing.
All right,
Yeah.
fantastic. So what's the key takeaway message for people who are thinking about painting their house?
The take-home message is sit down, have a think, and decide if you're money-based or if you're time-based. Okay, if you're time-based, then you can consider doing it yourself. If you're money-based, get a pro. If you're time-based and you're going to do it yourself, then think about safety issues. Check the paint, does it have lead-based undercoats? And secondly, think about access and heights. Especially if you're doing it outside, you've got lots of safety issues to consider.
Great. Rohan Calbert, thank you for your time.
Pleasure.